The bad mistake. If we screwed up.
Here.
Waters?
Here.
Capron?
Here.
Gretkin?
Here.
Moore?
Here. Can we stand for a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start, if there are any of you that are here, you certainly can stay under the item and discuss it, but we will not be taking any action on number 17, I think. No.
16, maybe? 15.
15 on the hotel proposal. So if you're here on the hotel proposal, you're free to talk, but we'll be deferring that until May 8th. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which is items 2 through 12G. You can consider these items pass unanimously unless a separate roll call vote is called for by a council member. If you want to speak on any agenda item, please come forward and state your name and address so it can be used for the record. Same under citizen concerns. If you come under there, please again state your name and address for the record. I'll move the consent agenda. 3 is a reading of the council minutes of April 10th, 2017. 3 is a resolution approving a corrective city deed to Sioux Corporation for property at 3201, 3151, and 3501 Line Drive. 4 is a resolution temporarily closing various streets in the downtown area on May 21st, 2017 for the Bishop Heelan High School graduation reception. 5 is a hearing and resolution supporting the submission of an IEDA application for workforce housing tax credit for Brad Cummings Housing 28th Court and 30th Streets and Kensington Court and Nordic Court. 8 are actions relating to grants. A is a resolution approving submission of an application for annual consolidated transit assistance funding from the IDOT. B is a resolution authorizing application for the FTA with the FTA for federal transportation assistance. 7 are actions relating to agreements and contract. A is a resolution approving a contract H&R construction for the Cone Park Lodge project. B is a resolution.
I have a question on that one.
Yeah.
Mayor. Matt, is this one we have the alternates?
Yeah, I think you talk.
Yeah, could you just tell me briefly what the alternates are and refresh my memory,
Sure.
please?
Nathan Kaleher, Plan Architecture, 255 Fifth Street. I'll go through. Alternate 1 is essentially civil work or site work that was required. It sort of fell between the two project scopes, one of the park and one of the building. Felt that was the best way to get that in there. Alternate 2 is for a stone veneer finish along where the fireplace was located. Alternate 3 is a tongue and groove cedar siding soffit material as opposed to a cement board soffit material.
As opposed to what?
As opposed to a cement board soffit, which would be like a plain painted board, basically. And then the cedar aesthetically will tie into the glue laminated heavy timbers that we have, where there are these kind of beautiful columns and beams that go back, or I think they're beautiful. Alternate 4 is for an additional toilet and urinal plumbing fixtures. What is provided in the base bid is the code minimum, and then the additional would basically provide backup fixtures for park users and stuff that are outside of the building above and beyond the code minimum. That also included items like the toilet partitions and other accessories that come with the fixtures.
What was the first alternate again? I didn't.
I'm actually going to invite Matt up to describe the details of that.
Matt Salvatore, Parks and Recreation Director. That was all the civil work. So that was your trail extensions, your utility hookups.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
How's the fundraising going?
We're still working. We've gotten some donations for tubes and other incidentals for the park, and we're going to keep working on that. So far about 25, 30,000 in donations,
For this project?
just for the overall project.
Because we were going to make a concerted effort to raise funding for this thing.
We're continuing to do that.
B is a resolution approving amendment number 2 for the engineering services agreement with Smith Group JJR, adding a new section outlining services providing in connection with the downtown park design project. C is a resolution awarding a service provider agreement to Cooch Co. to replace shingles at Kirk Hansen, Goldie, and Hubbard Parks. D is a resolution approving a contract with Brunman Hicks for the Half Moon Booster Station Facility Improvement Project. E is a resolution authorizing a construction inspection and maintenance of rain garden and bio retention cell system agreement.
I have a question about that.
I gotta finish reading it, let me finish reading it real quick.
Oh, I got you.
With SM Southern Hills Mall for the Bean Park Watershed Upland BMPS project. Now, go ahead.
Thank you. Glenn, I was just wondering, reading through the hard copy and even the memo, it was just a little hard to understand. Can you talk about what this project is or what it's doing?
Yeah, Glenn Ellis, city engineer. This project is to improve water quality and runoff, and it's going to take place on the mall, on the north side where they store a lot of their snow right now. Out of the parking lot, there's a vacant area. We have funding through the state, through the SRF program, which is to help fund water quality projects. We're going in,
The melting of the snow and the salt.
well,
that's
just a
there?
lot of the runoff from the parking lot itself. We will have bio retention area and a rain garden that'll collect that, allow it to infiltrate so that the water quality is improved. It'll also slow down the runoff so that by the time the water, it'll reduce the amount of runoff that gets into our system, thus reducing that runoff downstream, the amount of runoff that then potentially gets into these open channels and creates some of the runoff and erosions downstream. So this will help improve the water quality and some of the runoff issues.
Where are they gonna put this at?
It'll be on the north side of the parking lot. The agreement has an
Where the
exhibit.
old, by the,
North of Penny's?
Yeah, just north of Penny's.
Just south of the Tuesday morning or whatever it was, maybe?
Yes, Rick Mock, Special Assistant to City Manager. There's actually 4 cells that would go in the 2 wings on either side of Yonkers that currently have the big pine trees on the parking lot that surrounds the Yonkers site. Then that site right by the access road off of Lancelot to the south of the bank. And then the section between Tuesday morning and Penny's.
and it's already been bid?
Correct.
We have the bids and we're waiting to award till we had the easement in place.
And who's gonna maintain them?
It's an agreement between the city and the mall.
That didn't answer the question. Who's gonna maintain them?
Smaller maintenance, the city will be responsible for any major erosion-related issues, but the mall will have the day-to-day.
So just so you know, you're taking on the maintenance of 4 more retention ponds here.
How much maintenance is there to a retention pond?
Well, this area in particular, the way it's designed, it's the sediments that'll be collected because of the water quality. That's the nature of it, is to collect the sediments so that it doesn't go downstream. The mall will be responsible for clearing that out. The city will be as needed if there's major erosion control issues where we have a lot of runoff and the system isn't functioning as it is. That'll be our maintenance. If the mall does not do their regular maintenance, then the agreement does allow the city to go in there and make those corrections and then bill the mall for that work.
And do the mall have people that know what they're doing?
They'll have directions on how to maintain. The agreement itself outlines a number of those responsible items that they have. Some of it is just go out and make sure that the system doesn't have too much buildup. But yeah, when it becomes part of the, what to do to correct some of that, there will be narrative or information that we provide to them that will help them to maintain that system.
So who's in charge of the construction?
City has the construction contract, or will have it. We haven't awarded it yet, but it has been bid.
Who's in charge of the inspection of the construction?
The city with HR Green.
City would be what?
The city and HR Green, the design consultant.
And so if I'm understanding this correctly, it's basically filtering the water, and then the sediment, the mall is responsible for removing,
Right,
right? And then any major repairs, the city.
yeah.
Is this a grant program?
This is the utilization of the wastewater funding interest that we paid on those loans for I-29. It's allowed to come back to the city in the form of clean watering
We
programs
can
like
use it
this.
for anything, though, that's clean water.
Well, it's kind of, you need to do a project that cleans up water in a watershed area. So it's kind of a continuation of Ravine Park project that was done, because this is part of that drainage basin.
I would just want to make sure that the mall is staying up on the removal of that sediment, because I think that's where you run into most trouble. You know what I mean? Is if they didn't clear that out, that's when you're going to run into really expensive fixes.
Right.
And then if we're on the hook for that, you know what I mean? I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, that they're staying on top of their end of the agreement.
Correct.
And how many ponds do we have? Mayor mentioned 4. Is this going to be 4 retention ponds?
It'll be 4 cells on the Mellow property. That is correct.
No, that's 4 detention ponds.
That is correct.
Don't sugarcoat it, Mr. Mark. It is what it is. I don't know how we get in the situation where we help a business that ought to be doing it themselves.
Well, when we have.
I mean, we have lots of areas of city property we could be filtering water on.
Well, this one was one that was identified as we felt was a significant improvement because of the impervious, the parking lot and all the runoff from there. And it's upstream of the system that we're currently improving now. Yeah, we have identified other areas. We do have other ideas to use the remaining funds for. This one was one we had identified early on, and it was one we were able to tackle. We will follow up with.
Okay,
other
well, here's the
locations.
deal. I'd like a list of all of these that you have in the future plan, because this is something that just out of the blue, we've never had it in the budget, we've never had it in the CIP, right? Is this in the CIP talking about here?
We do have a list, and we can provide that to you.
Well, what's it cost? You took bids, you have to know what it
For
costs.
this one, yeah, this one, off the top of my head, I don't recall what the actual amount was, but it's a couple $100,000.
I'm gonna move we defer this.
Well, this has some, and it-
Projects. We come here today, we don't have, you say you've already bid it, we don't know the amount. This catches those of us that,
I'm surprised that you don't know about the project, because I mean,
Well, how
you went
would I
through the
know?
normal, well, yeah, you are new. I
how
mean,
would we, do you know about them? How would we know about them?
you went through the normal process for bidding, and it's in the CIP.
Not this project specific, it's just
Well,
sponsored
the-
project money.
When did it go through projects for bidding that we approved this?
Yeah.
No, we didn't approve a construction contract. You said you're holding it till we
Well,
approve it.
the bidding process, I mean, we had the adopt, we had the hearing.
I have a hard enough time getting bid tabs out of your office. How would I know about a project that's coming? Up until the city attorney explained to you what an open document was, I couldn't even get a bid tab. So how would I know about jobs that were coming to be bid? How would I know? I'm just asking, how would I know that?
We have our
Did we
Regular-
advertise it?
yeah,
I believe what Glenn is wanting to explain is that it came before council
Yeah.
for
Yes.
the
Normal.
adopt of the construction plans and then the hearing on the plans.
Well, I guess that we adopted them and didn't really know what I didn't know what we were adopting then, because I didn't know it was on Southern Hills Mall's property. I thought it was downstream where you were working, to tell you the truth. This was a couple weeks ago. I thought it was down in that
Yeah.
deal that you were wanting to get done is what I thought we were approving, because it certainly didn't say it was on private property.
I'd have to double check the language in the RCA, but it was the Ravine Park Upland BMP's
That's what it said.
project.
You're exactly right. This is a long way from Ravine Park. I realize it drains there. The problem I've got is now you're going on private property to do this, and you're gonna run into the problem, well, why can't you go on private property and fix upstream Ravine Park then?
Oh, we have an easement that we were able to negotiate through. The other areas, we would have to negotiate through to get an easement to make other improvements.
No. For me, you don't have to call a separate roll call. I know it's gonna pass, so it doesn't matter.
You do have a list, though, of the projects, right, Glenn?
Yeah, we could provide that.
And you need this approved today, or can it wait? Can it wait a week?
It's
They
tied
got
to
contracts that have to be awarded.
Or you've
it's
got-
tied to
Councilman
a,
Moore, it's directly tied to item 8, which is the sewer revenue bonds.
To the,
Capital number 8 is the sewer revenue
Oh,
item. It's directly tied
Mayor and
to.
council, if we defer the easement, we cannot do the refunding on the sponsored project and we lose $30,000. I do apologize for the timing of this issue.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
yeah, I wanna know how many more on private property, because you're gonna have a hard time convincing people that have problems when you're going and fixing something that really isn't a problem, other than cleaning up the water, how you're gonna do that.
yeah, the list will identify, I think we do have 2 or 3 other that are on private property in that upland area to do similar improvements on, not to the scale of this project.
But this isn't gonna slow the flow or help the erosion or any of that.
But it's to help the quality in it because it is.
I agree with that. I'm all for that.
mean,
I
that's-
agree. The water will be much cleaner when it comes out, but that's all it's doing. It's not gonna stop erosion or anything else. The same amount of water is gonna go through there.
Well, yeah, the same amount, but I guess the rate that it's discharged from the site.
Call the roll, please. No, I didn't, withdraw my deferral. Call the roll on the item itself.
Scott,
No.
Waters. Capron,
Aye.
Greckin,
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
F is a resolution awarding a service provider agreement to Knife Electric to provide and install a generator at Fire Station Number 8, 3829 West 19th Street. I'm sure that once a month when we turn it on has worn this baby out too, but I'm not gonna vote no today. Let's just move on here.
Hey, I have a question. Is every fire station getting a generator?
Sorry, I didn't hear. Mark Hayes, Fire Marshal.
Hi, Mark. Is every fire station getting a generator?
No, this one's just for Station 8. All the other ones already have them.
Oh, okay. So all the stations have one now. Station 8's the only one that didn't have one?
They do have one. This is the replacement, the one that they
okay.
currently.
Yeah, right.
Amusing part, I was told it was used when they installed it. So.
Yeah. That's your story and you're sticking to it today, but I'm not that foolish. G is a resolution approving a consulting services agreement with House Seal, I can't say it, Levine Associates for preparation of the comprehensive plan.
Jeff Hansen, Community Development Operations Manager. We do have representatives here from the consulting firm of Halcyon Levine from Chicago, Illinois here to make introductions and also make a few statements on the comp plan.
Hi, thanks, Jeff. I'm Dan Gardner, Principal with Halcyon Levine Associates, 188 West Randolph in Chicago. With me is Senior Associate Michio Markishi. We're really excited to be engaged with the city on the plan and kick things off. A couple of things I want to emphasize about our process. We do comprehensive plans all over the country. We've done a lot of work extensively in the state of Iowa. But every time we do a plan, we start over. For sure, we bring national expertise, best practices to you, but we don't try to make a plan fit the city because it works someplace else or there were similar qualities. One of the things we really emphasize is outreach and community input. At the end of the day, this plan is about a 12, 16-month process. The plan has to reflect the vision of the community, and by doing so, the plan is a productive, long-term document for the community. So there's outreach built in on a lot of different levels of engaging the community. There will be a citizens advisory committee or a comprehensive plan advisory committee representing a cross-section of the community. Will be working with Jeff and staff on comprising that committee, and they work as kind of the liaison sounding board for us through the process. So everything that we produce gets vetted before it actually becomes part of the document. One of the things that I really want to emphasize about how we do a plan is that the plan is only as good as its ability to be implemented. So at the end of this process, the implementation component and the strategies and the roles, responsibilities, funding sources are all tied to elements of the plan so that you have a usable document. And the plan really has to be, it can't be the proverbial plan that sits on a shelf. It has to be a plan that can be implemented even as we go through a process. So that's an important element I really want to stress. We're working with all of you, working with extensively with staff, working with the advisory committee, and you'll see a lot of us here in town. So I'll be happy to take any questions if anybody has any questions, but we're really excited about kicking things off.
I have a question. Will you have people per se right in the city kind of engaging with people? So you get a feel of what we're like or who we are, what we're about?
The simple answer is yes, we will be doing that. We won't be here 24 hours a day or 7 days a week. We are also a team with HR Green on this, on the infrastructure and transportation components. So they have a presence here in the city. We'll be coming and going throughout the process and have regular ongoing contact. We're not going to have an office here in the city, but we do, as an extension of us, or through our affiliation with HR Green, have a location here.
Okay, so will you be, you're talking about getting all our committees, boards, commissions, people together to get ideas. Are you going to have someone there sitting with some of these boards, commissions, so you understand what we're trying to get across?
We have a schedule of events and community outreach as well as meetings, and we'll have those touch points and the things that will be vetted and the input that we'll be receiving. So we'll be identifying, by tomorrow we have a meeting with department heads. We'll be going through all that. We sent out a community facilities provider survey where we get the input from all the local providers of community services. In terms of the boards and commissions, in terms of who ends up on the committee and the presentations we give, we'll also be doing, sitting down and doing interviews. So at some point, we'll be crossing paths with everybody.
Okay, because this is a kind of a big chunk of dough here, and I want to make sure that we get our money's worth. And I'm sure our citizens want the same thing. And we have a great city here. We just want to be able to, show people how proud we are to be
For
here.
sure.
And hopefully with your help and with all our people here and getting input from the whole city.
Money's worth. And one of the things that a lot of times that it kind of gets missed on why you do a comprehensive plan, in addition to just having what the plan does in terms of long-term planning, as it serves as a guide, it informs regulatory decisions. It's not zoning, but it's informing your regulatory decisions, the things that might need to be changed in your zoning and your ordinances and your codes. But as a guide for land use and development, so that when people are bringing things forward, maybe even projects they're couldn't even conceive today, 2 years from now, somebody may be standing before you with a proposed development or a proposed change in land use. That gives that guide. It also gives fair certainty to who's ever thinking about this investment or this development, or maybe even just moving and relocating to Sioux City. That's what the plan does. It also provides a document for pursuit of funding sources. So a lot of the questions on an application for funding, maybe, do you have a current comprehensive plan? And if so, is this request consistent with your comprehensive plan? And if you can't answer yes to either or both of those questions, you may not be able to pursue that grant or that source. So it serves a lot of functions beyond just being a document to guide planning. It really is a functional tool that will be used by everyone, and we make sure that everybody understands the boards, the commissions, council, how that can be utilized on a daily basis.
Have you done work in Iowa?
Extensively throughout Iowa. We've worked, we're just wrapping up a Lincoln Way corridor plan in Ames. We've worked in Fort Dodge, Plainfield, Council Bluffs, Marion. So we're real familiar with the planning principles.
Rhonda, to hit on the questions in regards to boards and commissions, staff has already presented at a few of those. Obviously, our Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment will be heavily involved throughout this process. The Historic Preservation Commission will be heavily involved. We have a historic preservation component to the comprehensive plan. We've made a presentation at the Environmental Advisory Board. They will have a representation on that steering committee, as well as Parks and Rec. We expect to have their participation as well when it comes to looking at green space and preservation areas on the future land use map. So those boards and commissions are aware of the project and will obviously have a role throughout the entire deal. So.
Well, you know, this can give us a whole different focus on how Sioux City is going to be going forward. So I just want to make sure that it's done right, because you only get one shot at it. So
that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
How long does your plan, or how much time does your plan take into consideration? You're going to give us a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan?
Well, the comprehensive plan is a long-term document. So the comprehensive plan is looking 10 plus years out.
How many?
10 plus. Right. So it's a long-term plan, but there are things within the plan that are quick hits and the types of things that are more shorter term, things that are improvements or catalytic projects that will spur other things. So that's part of, once we're going through, you know, the things that the plan is identifying, and the implementation component will identify the things that are really the quicker hits that can catalyze those longer term benefits.
Sure.
And it outlines that prioritization. I mean, because it sounds like you're saying a prioritization, you know, some of these things I would recommend doing quickly, some of them long-term. I didn't mean to cut you off, Councilman Brecken, but.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, and that's part of, that is the final chapter, if you will, is, you know, because it has to tie back to plan elements. But even though that's kind of the final plan, those are things we're thinking about as we're going through the process. Well, how will this work, and how will this catalyze other things that are components of the plan? But then that last part is kind of that scorecard, if you will, of how you can measure success and what those things are that you should be doing to achieve the recommendations within the plan.
Jeff, in the CFP project description or justification, you talked about, or no action in the description, this update will include a preservation plan and may have the opportunity to include a housing study as previously discussed. We will do that?
Yes, as part of the scope, we've included a housing study. We currently have a few other housing studies. Most recently, we've done a distressed housing study, makes us eligible to apply for the workforce housing. This housing study will be different from that. You know, it's looking at the current trends, future trends, what the housing demand is. A lot of times we're working with prospects and economic development projects. We're always asked, well, what's the demand for housing in Sioux City? It's very difficult to answer that other than to provide building permits from current and past years to show them the trend and the uptick of the housing in Sioux City for the next 10 years is something that we hope to get out of this plan.
You know, one other thing that came to mind when I reviewed this a couple of times over the weekend, I know the current plan or the last plan, however we put it, was done in 2005.
Approved in 2005.
Approved in 2005. And I'm assuming that we don't believe there's any merit left in that plan? And that's why we want to do this?
No, I think there's still merit. Obviously, the biggest portion of that plan that we use on a daily basis is the future land use map. You know, our Planning and Zoning Commission and staff use that daily when we're looking at new projects and rezonings. That's part of the regulatory enforcement that they mentioned earlier, is that future land use map and rezonings must be consistent with each other. And so that is something that we still use. It's still current. Obviously, we're going to look at that map and continue to expand those future development areas, but I don't think you're going to see any drastic changes in that map. So there are still areas of that plan that we can utilize for this new one.
Do we at any point towards the end of usefulness of the current comprehensive plan, do we ever get together again and go back and just debrief it and say we were successful here, we weren't there?
As part of the scope of services with this contract, that'll be one of the areas that's going to be looked at. They're going to go through that entire plan, determine what was successful, what was not, what was
Great,
done,
great.
what was not completed. And if
don't-
there's still areas of that plan that need to be completed, they'll be brought into the new plan.
And then periodically throughout a new plan, will we have access to you to be able to say, here's what we've done so far, and maybe you offer insight there too, or?
Right, you would mean subsequent to the adoption of this, the new
Yes.
plan? Or, yeah, then that's something we will come back, there's communities where we come back and really giving them kind of a rating of, so here's where you're tracking in terms of the implementation of the things that were part of the plan. Here's why you may be tracking behind, here's why you are tracking ahead. What are the things you need to do to make sure that those things are being implemented? And then discuss where maybe some of the impediments have been, but then it's the way to get around or overcome those things.
Thank you.
What was your name again, sir?
Dan Gardner?
Dan, sorry, I didn't
problem.
catch it at first. Dan, the question I have too is when you were speaking just a moment ago, you said approximately 12-month process, but in my documentation, it says 18.
No, I think I said 12, if it's 12 to 16, yeah. So generally, I think we kind of carved out a 12 to 18 month, but we can usually get it done within that, kind of that parameters.
Like a lot of that time will be dependent on the number of public meetings we have and how we get those arranged. Will depend on that schedule, but obviously we're going to try to get it done sooner than later because it is something that we're in need of, a new comp plan. It's, the current plan is 12 years old. And so, but obviously we don't want to miss out on any public meetings. So if we have to have a few extra public meetings at the end, that will extend us into that 14 to 16 month range, and we will do that.
Right, and that's it. And you're running the things that can be unforeseen. We may schedule a community meeting and a blizzard comes. We're not going to say, well, that was your shot at it. We'll come back and redo that meeting at a different time.
I understand that. Jeff, I don't know if this is a question for you. One thing that I thought a lot about over the weekend were the different people that have come and given us perspectives on different areas of our community, or, I think of Roger Brooks. Obviously, I went back and read his report and other things that were going on. And I want to make sure, as Councilman Grecken was bringing up, that we're checking in with where we are on the progress of these, because it bothers me if we're not taking the advice of Roger Brooks or other consultants that have done these things, and then we're gonna spend $300,000 toward this, where it's, well, have we done everything that Roger Brooks or other consultants have said? This is what you need to do to make your city more attractive. Why not take the $300K and put it towards those projects? I
We
mean,
can't even do way signs in the downtown that make sense.
that's exactly what I agree with, and that's what I'm saying.
We've had funding for that.
And that's what I am wrong. I think that this is needed. I think it's been 12 years. I want to have this happen. So please don't take offense or that I'm saying that. I'm just saying if we can plan and have that in the budget for next year or a different time, and we take the $300K now and say, well, let's actually improve on what consultants have said would make our city better right now.
Sure. And we have done a few of those action sign code. When we adopted the new sign ordinance, we allowed projecting signs. That was one of the recommendations. We've changed the code. We've added that. The public parking signage, we're working with Monette on updating the parking ramp signage to be more clear. There was some confusion on the parking ramp signage. The wayfinding, it is currently in the CIP, and we've partnered with Downtown Partners. They have committed to help fund that now, so that should be proceeding forward. We were working with them on financial contribution, and they've agreed to help us. And so that'll help make the project more successful. So I think a few of them are going. Some of the other items in there, as far as the business hours and that type of thing, and expanding hours to evening hours, that's something that we need to continue to work with Downtown Partners on to promote. That's more of their actual items, but we have hit on some of them.
What's the timeline of the wayfinding then? I mean, you said that it's moving forward.
I believe it got approved in fiscal year 18 CIP. I got to go back and look, but we have a commitment from Downtown Partners to assist with that. Obviously, I hate to bring it up, but one thing that needs to be decided before we can update our wayfinding is the two-way conversion, if that is something that we're going to proceed forward with. Obviously, if we look at converting 5th and 6th to a two-way, that decision needs to be made before the wayfinding, because that decision is going to have a big effect on those signs.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I just wanted to voice That's the concern I have, is
Understood.
just
Thank you.
voting and moving forward with this when it's like, well, I think we have some good advice that's been given to us, and I want to make sure that we're funding those things and not just spending more money to take a 30,000-foot view of our city and say, well, where can we grow and what can we do? Let's focus on improving what we have.
We still need entrance signs.
I don't know. It just concerns me. You know what I mean?
Okay. Thank you.
You said when they originally did this, there were like 3 different little pods that you were gonna do. One of them was the downtown, one of them was something else. What are those 3 so we know now?
We haven't identified those. Last time we were here, we discussed looking at an industrial area and then also possibly downtown. We received your feedback that maybe downtown has been studied enough.
No, that was my feedback. The rest of them speak for themselves.
I think what we'd like to do is before we decide that is actually form the steering advisory committee and get feedback from these representatives from the boards, the commissions, the general public, the survey work that they're going to do. And so as of today, we have not determined where those areas will be at. We originally, with the first scope of services at an additional cost, we had 4 sub areas. We've narrowed it down to 2 at this new cost. So it's still yet to be determined.
And it says here, if we approve tonight, you're gonna have a meeting on April 18th as a kickoff. Who's included in that meeting?
Tomorrow's project kickoff meeting is just at the staff level, and that's an opportunity for all of our departments to meet the consultant and for the consultant to get some feedback from the departments. There'll be a lot of data collection, GIS data, mapping, infrastructure, that type of thing that needs to be collected. And so tomorrow's meeting is just an opportunity for the staff of all the departments that have not worked with them yet to get introduced and to get feedback to them.
Well, and Jeff, what you said there is, I think something that I can get more behind is I want you to take a very strategic look at, we've studied this area, we know what we need to do or what we want to improve here, we know that we might need to expand here, and really focus on where we haven't studied or what we need to expand on or what would promote growth. You know what I mean? That's what I can get behind, that if you think that you can narrow the scope into the different areas, you know, instead of taking such a broad look and saying, well, let's do downtown, let's do these other areas. But if we have some stuff on that, I mean, let's not focus on there if we already studied.
Those 2 sub areas were just identified in the scope as additional items that would drill down further into the infrastructure to provide services for new development areas, more mapping, more conceptual plans. The actual comp plan will affect the entire city and also look at additional annexation areas outside of the city limits. So those 2 sub areas, we've done them in-house before. You know, we've done a Hamilton corridor study, a Pierce corridor study. So that would be similar to what these sub areas would include.
Well, just keep in mind, the industrial area has been studied a lot lately as far as transportation. And there's hardly any lots left down there. So I guess I personally, my vote would be not to study a whole lot of that, because what are you gonna do? I mean, there aren't any more lots down there, right?
To the south?
In our existing business park where Triumph is going, and that
No, I agree. You know, the available property is becoming smaller. It could be an area that's not even identified yet. It could be a new area outside of the city limits that we could provide services to.
Call the roll on this one, please.
Waters,
Aye.
Capron,
Aye.
Gretkin,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Scott.
No. We'll go on to H is the resolution approving a contract with Thompson Electric for the Heritage Park ramp lighting renovation project, and I need to abstain on that item. 8 is resolution amending the original resolution approved May 13, 2013, and said resolution approving a loan and disbursement agreement with the Iowa Finance Authority and issuance of sewer revenue capital loan notes for funding of a sponsored project under a new series 2013 note, including approval of a supplemental tax exemption certificate. I'll move it, or it's in there. We don't need to move it. 9 is appointments to boards and commissions and committees. A is a motion reappointing Dr. Cindy Hansen to the Civil Service Commission to be a 4-year term expiring on April 1st, 2021. B is a motion reappointing Michael Baia to the Effective Fiscal and Public Policy Committee for a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2019. C is a motion appointing Richard Moore to the Human Rights Commission to complete the balance of a 3-year term expiring on June 30th, 2017, replacing Jeremy Pig, and reappointing Richard Moore to a 3-year term expiring on June 30th, 2020. I'm going to abstain on every item that comes before us on the Human Rights Commission, so I'm going to abstain on that as well. D is a motion appointing Gene Carlson to the Senior Advisory Committee for a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2019. E is a motion appointing James Chartier to the Senior Advisory Committee for a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2019. F is a motion appointing Dan Burrows to the Senior Advisory Committee for a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2020. G is a motion appointing Neil Peck to the Senior Advisory Committee for a 4-year term expiring December 31st, 2020. H is a motion appointing Ann Broderson to the Senior Advisory Committee for a 4-year term expiring December 31st, 2020. Upon due consideration of the circumstances, the City Council waives a policy that no person shall serve on more than 2 consecutive terms. What does she serve on now?
Should say no more than 2 consecutive, or no more than 2 boards.
2 boards.
At one time, that's not the right
Right,
wording, I'm
okay,
sorry.
no more than 2 boards. And where does she serve on now? Remind me.
She is on,
Because I'm not really in favor of those type of waivers. Nothing against Ann, I think she's great on both of them, whatever she does, but
where is she? Still in public policy, is that one here?
yeah, I'll just move ahead. That's fine. Actions relating to assessments. A is a resolution fixing the amounts to be assessed against private properties, adopting the and levying the schedule of assessments for 2017 nuisance abatement program. B is a resolution fixing the amount to be assessed against private property, adopting and levying a schedule of assessments for the 2017 sidewalk snow removal program. C is a resolution fixing the amount to be assessed against private property, adopting and levying a schedule of assessments for the 2016 weed cutting program.
Did you find out the boards that Ann serves on?
Yes,
It's
this one.
effective fiscal and public policy committee.
Just the one?
Yeah.
And now she's on
Now the
2.
senior advisory.
The senior would make it
So
2.
it's 2 or more boards then?
No,
'Cause earlier
you can
you
only
said-
serve on 1 at a time unless the
No,
council.
but it's stated that more than 2 boards. We're waiving that. It's actually 2 boards or
Wording
more.
was wrong, more than
On the
one
agenda
board.
is incorrect.
More than 1 board. No, the agenda was then corrected to more than 2 boards. I'm just saying, no, it's more than 1 board,
That makes sense. Sorry.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
11 are applications for beer and liquor license. See the list and come forward if you have any questions. 12 are receipt of minutes. Anyone to be heard on any of those items? Seeing none, we'll move forward with item 13, which is a recommendation of plan. We need to vote on that.
Yes.
Let's call the roll then.
Capron,
Aye.
Greckin.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
13 is a hearing and ordinance vacating the East 2017-0220. Petitioner William Weber, P and Z recommends approval.
I'll move that.
Second.
Call the roll.
Greckin.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to waiving the statutory rule?
No.
I'll move it.
Second.
Moore.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
Greckin.
Aye.
I'll move second and third.
Second.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
Greckin.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
14 is a hearing and resolution approving the sublease of space in the Public Safety Communications Tower at 3430 West 23rd Street to Motorola Solutions. I'll move it.
Second.
Waters.
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
Greckin.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye. 15 is a hearing and resolution accepting the proposal of Kinseth Hospitality for the purchase of land that combine Central Sioux City CBD urban renewal area and authorizing development of a minimum assessment agreement property at 800 block of 4th Street. Motion is deferred until May 8, 2017. We're deferring this, but if anybody would like to be heard, Dick, can you hear without that thing back? We're deferring it, but if anybody wants to be heard, please come forward now, so if you don't want to come back on May 8th, otherwise it'll be back on May 8th. I move the deferral too.
Second.
Thank you. I have talked to several people, mostly business people, but also just people other than that. And I don't think I can name probably in one hand the number of people that have actually expressed be in favor of this project. I know that the staff and some of the council members and the convention center's board is in favor of it, but I think that the negatives are just far outweigh the positives. I think there's two approaches that I would like to see that I think would be much better approaches. The first and most ideal would be to somehow negotiate and take over the former Hilton Hotel and offer the same incentives to them, to the new operator and owner as you would on the new hotel that you're proposing, that's being proposed. That would be a win-win-win-win-win-win situation. You'd retain the parking. There would just be so many positives to that. You would also utilize the ramps that are underutilized, as stated in the newspaper, 1,096, I believe, parking spaces that are not being utilized. So that would, rather than have to build and pay for a new ramp. The second and alternative, which would not be, would be a second choice, would be to take over the Riviera Theater, and which I think could be bought for about $400,000 to $500,000 once the foreclosure is completed, which should be fairly soon. That is fairly close to the site, to the amount of space that the new hotel is going to be taking. That would also free up the parking, and would not have to build a new ramp, and would also fill and put money into the city coffers to utilize the ramps, the two ramps more fully that are not being utilized. Anyway, that's those are in rather than this, and hopefully maybe if it's number two, the hotel, the Kinseth Group would be even willing to build a hotel there. But I've heard a negative reply about the current hotel that's there, that's saying that people that stay there in the conventions and so forth say that they the street. It's actually in from some people in the staff that they will not come back because of that. Well, if you don't buy the hotel there and redo that completely, and then we have more conventions come in with a new hotel, either place, you're still going to have the same problem and the same reaction. People are still going to end up staying there because it's so close to the convention center, and you're going to have them say the same thing. So I don't really believe that you're gaining that much. So anyway, I appreciate you letting me give at least just my personal input, and you can probably take it for what it's worth, and you've paid nothing for it, so whatever, that would be fine.
Thank you, Dick.
Dick, I have a
Thank you.
question for you, Dick. I have a question for you in a second.
I have the looping, it works great, except that it doesn't work up there. For some reason, they must have stopped with the wiring underneath.
Pull that back if you want to.
So I can.
Oh, it's back as far as it is.
And for some reason, I have to turn my head so that the sound goes in. The other negative I have, Alex, is that last Friday, my right hearing aid went bad, and they had to send it into the factory. So I'm operating with one hearing aid.
Well, I'm sorry for that.
All that to say, I may or may not understand what you're saying.
Well, you said you've talked to numerous people that were against it. I'm curious of what their reasoning was. You didn't state what the reasoning was, because when we have, and let me preface it by saying, just because we have so like downtown partners, for instance, and all the downtown businesses that I've talked to have been in support of it. So I'm just curious of what the people you're talking to, what their reasoning was behind it. Was it parking? Was it the addition of a new hotel? What are the reasonings you're hearing?
Well, the losing parking, now, for instance, some people have said, okay, if you come to the convention center and you unload with a truck, okay, number one, I've been told that you can unload with a truck and maybe a semi. I'm not sure if you put the hotel there. But where are they going to park the trucks? When you have the home show and all the other exhibits that come into the convention center, where are they going to park their trucks? They're going to park them in the ramp? Obviously not. The other problem is that in the new hotel where it's at, the ramp is going to be on the north side of it, is from what I understand. Is that correct? Okay. Yes. People are not going to, now the thing, you're adding a block away from all the businesses. And maybe the hotel people will stay there, but how many times are you going to have a convention where that hotel is full? So how much is that going to be utilized? So there you are with partially filled 2 ramps. Now we're going to have a 3rd ramp that's going to be partially filled most of the time, because you don't have big conventions here hardly ever, once a month at the very most. And now we probably don't even have that. But so those are the reactions that I've received. And then the point was brought up too to me was, well, you could actually spend less money in the other 2 alternatives, and use the same funds that you're getting for the new hotel to either help pay for the purchase and renovation of the existing Hilton, or else to buy the Riviera and tear it down and give somebody an incentive there as well. In other words, if you give somebody the $10 million, you're giving Kinsett, which I think is great, because you probably won't get a hotel developer to do it without it. But you can do the same thing in the other 2 sites. So those are some of the things, the comments that I've had.
Okay. Thank you, Dick.
Anyone else? Okay, vote on the deferral.
And seconded, right?
Yes. Capron?
Aye.
Greckin?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters? Aye.
16, move forward with construction of military road construction and bridge rehabilitation project with a bridge and roadway closure and an disincentive program. I'll move it.
Second.
Has North Sioux come through with anything yet?
They have not come through with a dollar amount. They don't do their budget till August, and that's when they would come up with what they. I mean, that's why we're not looking for that specific of a number right now from you. I mean, I guess I would look more if the city as a percentage, or if in the concept at all that you guys agree with an incentive, disincentive. That's the type of information.
Well, I'm disappointed that we can close Morningside Avenue halfway, maintain traffic, maintain that business corridor there, but it's really not in the cards in Riverside. And
well, I actually met with one of our local contractors on this, and he says that his quote was, "Well, I can do anything if you throw enough money at it." But looking at it, I think it'd be very difficult in the scheme of things at the one phase of trying to do it half at a time. We would be pushing within 3 feet of one of the buildings and having to have barricades up there. And frankly, he said my estimate of a 30% increase on that part of the construction was low.
where we didn't pay a premium in Morningside to do that?
Oh, we did pay a premium.
Absolutely. So why, I love Morningside. I grew up there. I grew up within 2 blocks of your project. But why is it that when we go to downtown, we can do what it takes? When we go to Morningside, we seem to be able to do what it takes. But when we go to Leeds or Riverside or the West Side, we don't even make that a consideration to talk about for the council, and you are so far down the road now.
No, we're not, that's why we're coming to you now.
Okay, well, you are far down the road. You've gone out and the engineer's already said, well, he's there the last time, he said, we're gonna have to redesign this, and boy, that's gonna add to our fees and that. He said it right here. So it wasn't never a consideration is what bothers me.
I'll be honest, I wasn't here when you guys did the Morningside. I wouldn't have pushed for doing Morningside half at a time.
Nor was I, to be fair.
Well, it doesn't matter. You can right wrongs today. We don't have to send messages to people that some parts of this community are more important to others, because that's a wrong message, in my opinion, to send to any neighborhood.
I agree with you.
That you're not as important as other neighborhoods are.
I agree with what the mayor's saying with this exception, though. I thought, because you have the bridge and you have the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought on the bridge, we would, that possibly could compromise the bridge itself if you did one lane. Or I'm just going by what the experts tell me there.
Well, okay, when they, go back to the I-29, when you drove down there.
Right?
And when they do a deck on a bridge on I-29, on a lot of the overpasses, they do half at a time, and they have a stoplight on both ends, and you come and go.
You can do it. It's not that you
And
can't.
it doesn't compromise.
Will it compromise the structure?
In our opinion, you get a better product if you do the deck. A lot of the DOT's deck bridges are, especially their interstates, are actually two separate bridges. They're not one, even though they look like one, they're two separate bridges. But on their state highway routes, yeah, they do that. But also their traffic counts are usually considerably more than our 8,000 vehicles a day.
And my understanding too.
And you guys, like I said, it's a decision for you guys. The additional cost estimates are laid out there of what it'll cost additionally, and it will stretch the project out longer. But we can do that. I don't think you're going to see a significant reduction in the delays to get from most of Sioux City to North Sioux. Are you going to see a significant reduction in the delays by going one half at a time?
But Dave, just one thing though, isn't it? It's really a collective decision. It's not our decision, it's collective, because we own 50% of the bridge. The other 50% is owned by the state of South Dakota. Now, for some reason that I don't legally understand, they're going to convey that interest to the city of
when they
North Sioux.
conveyed the state highway to North Sioux, somehow the bridge was.
But this is a joint decision.
Correct.
On the additional cost of $1.5 million plus.
Yeah.
Right? We're $5 million.
The bridge itself would be about $675,000. The total project, if we wanted to design the project as doing it half at a time through the reconstruction area, we're talking about one estimate on the construction.
But that's what we have to come up with. That's not split.
No. The road construction would be solely our cost.
Exactly. So if we do half and half, we're stuck with another 1.8 million.
Well, no, 1.3.
Yeah, the 670
would be split.
Additional would be split, or the other entity could pay for the whole thing, or we could pay for the whole thing.
I don't believe the state of South, they didn't have any desire to pay for the additional cost for construction.
Well, we haven't negotiated the rate, the percentage or anything.
They didn't commit, yeah.
Right?
Well, they haven't come forth with an incentive.
What is the current arrangement with the South Dakota Department of Transportation? 50/50 on the cost of the bridge?
And the bridge and its design, correct.
And that's if we close it all at once?
Well, that's the numbers that were included in the agreement.
That
hasn't been brought forward. It's still, the details are getting worked out with the state, but.
Well, if South Dakota DOT, would South Dakota Department of Transportation consider doing it?
Yeah,
half at a time and then paying their fair share?
Yeah, we introduced that idea to them at our meeting, and they felt that was an option they could look into. They wouldn't commit, but that said, if that was the direction that we went down, they would evaluate that.
But that still leaves us with $338,000.
You don't really know the cost. You can bid it as an alternate, is my point. But you don't want to design it that way.
But you'd have to pay for two designs, because the design would be completely different.
That's the additional 27,000.
Yeah. No, that's the additional 150,000. Plus you'd have additional
150,000 additional for the design.
Design and the inspection.
I'll tell you what, by the time that you split that bridge up, They only got 2 miles to drive to get to the other side. And if you have stoplights at both ends, they're gonna sit there for 10 minutes waiting to get across. They might as well just drive around. And, you know, we're talking about all this extra money that we're gonna have to put on our taxpayers, which I think is crazy. You know, let's get it done. 5 months, we're done,
Or possibly less.
or less. I don't know what the big discussion is. It boggles my mind.
Well, then why didn't you do it in Morningside? Why didn't we do it out there?
Well, I don't know. I'm not talking about Morningside. I want to talk about.
I am.
I
You
wanna talk
treat
about
people
military.
differently here. That's my point.
Well,
Well, the thing I worry about though.
so we're gonna put our, excuse me a minute.
you're fine.
Okay, so we're gonna pay all this extra money because now that we.
You
treated
don't
Morningside-
know, these guys will make everything look, you don't know what the costs are until you bid a project. You don't know what that cost is. And they don't either.
They've already bid it.
They've
and-
overestimated and underestimated because that's the nature of who's got work and who doesn't. That's the reality. Nobody knows what the market is out there right now. West 7th Street come in 800,000 under your budget.
It happens, yeah.
Well, you know it's gonna cost more just because you're gonna split it up. I mean, if that's what you, if you
Well,
think
and
that.
extend the time period too. The thing that I worry about, though, to the mayor's point, is I don't want it to seem that we're playing favor or having favoritism or anything towards different neighborhoods. The thing that I would be curious about too is a majority of the population, I would argue, I haven't seen a traffic study, anything like that. Is it North Sioux and the dunes driving through there coming into Sioux City?
We don't
Or
have-
is it Riverside, is it the Riverside people are crossing going into North Sioux?
Alls we have our traffic counts and.
No, I know. I'm just saying for argument's sake, if we're talking about our constituents, I don't see all the jobs that are people in Riverside going to North Sioux to their job. It's quite the opposite is what I would, if I was a betting man, what I would say. And when you have North Sioux, the council voting unanimously saying no, do the 5-month. Come on, that's their constituents. So I don't know how we're playing favoritism in neighborhoods when North Sioux is the community that I would argue would be the most affected. And they're voting unanimously to say, no, let's do it in 5 months. And we're arguing about, no, we don't want to do favoritism of people driving there. I mean,
But
does
is
that
it
make
not-
sense? Do we?
Well, is it not though, using Sioux City businesses though? I mean, it's who's coming to the Sioux City businesses, using those businesses, that they have a concern that 5 months will hurt their business. Could even shut them down. And Rhonda, I understand your point, but I think it's a habit of how you get to that business.
I'm going to tell you
And will you
something.
change
I'm not
your
going to sit at
habits?
a stoplight for 10 minutes when I know it'll take me less than that to go around 2 miles. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. And the job will be weather permitting.
Well, you better put some incentive, disincentive on that because you have no guarantee that's going to happen
Well,
with
and
rain days in
we
Sioux
talked about
City.
it at our Public Works meeting. Either way. I mean, if you did it for, how long would half a bridge take? You're talking probably 10 months or a year.
It would take us double the length of the.
I'd want to get it over and done with, period. I've been through it. You know, you'll survive.
We can do it any way
It's
you
not gonna
guys
be,
want.
it's not going to be easy any way you do it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Dave, let me ask you this. How much of a reduction can we expect from 5 months to what? Can we go down to 90 days, or is that just?
Oh, my God.
I don't think that's ridiculous.
No way.
I don't know.
I don't think that's
4 months?
realistic.
No.
I don't think so either. Even the contractor I talked to, he said even with the incentive, disincentive, he goes, that'll have very
You
little.
talking the street and the bridge?
No, the bridge.
No, just the bridge. But
Just the bridge.
yeah, the street's going to be 9 to 10 months. But the contractor I spoke with said he didn't feel that even the
Well, what
incentive
difference does it take however long it takes to do the bridge? They're not going to be able to get across, go anywhere.
Well,
You
no,
got
it would be the
street
bridge
torn
up to the first intersection, and then we'd have a detour route through the neighborhood, which isn't ideal either, but yeah.
Not out there because the streets don't run.
They don't, there's no good route. It's gonna have some jigs and some jogs in it, definitely. Because that's just, there's no straight route from that first intersection out to Riverside Boulevard. And then it's, do you run them out to Riverside Boulevard, down past the school where you get to a signal light, or you just take the shortest route? I would probably run them down to the stoplight. But, I mean, it's absolutely correct that there's no good detour route out there.
Another
There's some
question I would
citizens-
have too is how,
Go ahead.
the rest of the council, I understand I'm new, so maybe people don't reach out to me as much, but I I've only heard from businesses in North Sioux that have reached out to me about concerns. I've had no constituents in Riverside.
Well, I'm one of them. I keep a boat at McCook Lake, and that's the way I go. Now you're gonna force me all the way down the interstate and up around. But go ahead, I'll live through it.
2 miles,
But
Bob.
my question was to the council, and I appreciate the point, Mayor. But has anyone felt an overwhelming response from the citizens of Riverside contacting you saying, please don't do this, please don't do this?
I had 2 people get a hold of me.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's.
I don't know if this is an appropriate juncture.
State your name and address, please.
Rick Law, I've got a couple of businesses in North Sioux City. I just wanted to reiterate Mayor Scott's earlier question at the March 27th meeting about staging the projects as opposed to staging half and half. That hasn't been addressed. I think you asked Mayor Scott for that to be addressed at this meeting, and I don't believe it has in the presentation that the engineering department has submitted. And staging this, the money isn't at risk for doing the bridge in 2019. Clearly, it won't be as efficient, but it would be much easier for businesses if the 2 projects weren't conjoined, and doing the bridge half at a time would be much less painful. You wouldn't have traffic all stacked up for a number of blocks. The way that it'd be proposed now, you can't stack, as engineering has aptly pointed out, you can't stack traffic up for, all the way from Riverside Boulevard all the way across a 400-foot bridge and then 100 feet on either side or whatever. So it still seems to make the most sense to stage these 2 projects, doing them in 2 different segments as they had originally been scheduled before they were co-joined for efficiency's sake. But I'm just, before you get too far down the road in arguing these points, and then further, I'd respectfully submit that it isn't a 2-minute or 2-mile detour you're talking about. If you live, close to Riverside and Military, for instance, you've got to go all the way back down the interstate and all the way back around, which is where a lot of the traffic.
It's 5.4 miles from Riverside to North Sioux.
Further, the economic impact hasn't really ever been studied. I think that was something that Councilman Moore had asked about at the end of the last meeting, and I don't think that's been addressed adequately at this point. The time that people spend at the detour was addressed in this study, and 240 million minutes, I believe, over the course of the entire project, as opposed to 180 million minutes that by taking a detour. I think. Tell me if I'm inaccurate in those numbers. But
I'd have to go look at that.
Maybe it's 100. Maybe it's 18 million and 24 million minutes. In any event, that may address the time consideration, but it doesn't address there's an accountant in the house. The IRS, I think, is presently giving you about 53 cents a mile. And to force the citizenry that works in North Sioux Industrial Park or wherever to drive around all those extra miles for an extended period of time, the cost of those extra miles for about a 6-month period would be about $500 per family, as opposed to staging the project in 2018. Doing it in 2 separate segments that way, you wouldn't have to worry about the traffic staging. You could do it in 2 separate projects. They could get across the bridge easily, and yeah, there would be less efficiency in doing the bridge, but due to the fact that South Dakota is going to be on the hook for whatever the bridge works out, and Iowa DOT is letting this, and Sioux City Engineering is in charge of it, I think that they're going to go along. I think you'll come up with the money. South Dakota stands to lose a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. What bridge builder did you talk to?
I didn't talk to a bridge builder. I talked to our subsurfco.
To who?
Brad.
But he didn't do bridge work.
No, we were talking about the road reconstruction and our estimate on that. My estimate for 30% of doing the road at half at a time. That's why I talked to Brad.
Probably. It's probably what you paid in Morningside.
Probably. Again, I wouldn't have agreed with that choice either, so.
Well, it's amazing how you did that, because I have an office out there, and when you did transit, you closed me down.
Yeah, and also this
and you made me
street,
buy sidewalk that isn't worth the concrete that you poured it with. But that's the way it works.
I can take blame for that one.
No, it was your predecessor. I know.
No, that was my project when I was here the first time. But John, did you talk to a bridge builder about the costs?
No, we just, I guess from past experience on other projects, and particularly, you want me to come to the microphone?
John Marburger with JEO Consulting Group. We looked at, about 25 other bridges where Iowa DOT had actually done incentive, disincentive to come up with those numbers. But then we've worked on a number of staged bridges over the years that, based on what we've seen in bid tabs, that 30% number on the bridge construction is fairly reasonable, I would say. On the engineering side, they're basically two different problems to solve. If you stage a bridge, you have to account for the extra load on the half that you're using for all the traffic. So there's some additional temporary bracing and things that you need to consider while you do that process. So that's kind of what goes into some of those numbers.
He's coached you well. Good job. Call for the question.
One concern I did hear was about biking and getting across. People that were biking from North Sioux or anything like that and getting across.
You wouldn't be able to do that when we're doing it one at a time. Because you'd be halfway across biking and the lights would switch and you'd have vehicles coming the opposite direction.
Well, either way, whether you stage it or otherwise, I'm just saying there's no opportunity, right? Even that walking bridge is so out of commission, right? To the north of that. You wouldn't be able to use
That's not the walking, that's a
or not
railroad
walking,
bridge.
but yeah, sorry.
They don't want,
What is that bridge? What was it used for?
it's a railroad bridge.
Old railroad one?
I think it's still active, isn't it?
I think it's still active.
It's still active.
Is it?
Yeah.
Don't walk across.
I was gonna say, yeah, just kidding.
Yeah. Or
Bike trail on it then.
As far as incentive, disincentive, just to let you know, the DOT's table they use, if you put it on the whole project, it's $2,000 a day. If you split the bridge away from the road reconstruction, it'd be about $1,500 for each per day.
why would you not split them? You're trying to bid this in one contract?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, the way we looked at it is, A, we didn't want to have to coordinate between the two contractors, and doing them at the same time makes the paying, it's just one season and it's over with, and it's all done.
Yeah, well, but why would you?
Because if we bid them separately, then the coordination between the two contractors.
That's what engineers are supposed to do, is do that. Because otherwise, you're gonna have you're gonna have a sewer guy put a bunch of money on a bridge contractor, you're gonna have somebody's putting money on the job to do the coordination.
Yeah, well, but the thing is.
That's what these guys should be doing.
But no, what you end up with is when there's a coordination conflict, we get hit with a change order for it. Instead of, no, it's not our issue.
That's because you don't have control of the contractors, if that's the case.
Because they have to travel over the same area to get there. The bridge contractor is gonna have to use the area that's being reconstructed to get to the bridge. He's gonna, because there's a space from the intersection to where the bridge is located. He can't build the entire bridge from one side.
Certainly can, he can build it from the North Sioux side and go that from, fine.
I'm just
Makes no
confused. Can you
sense.
explain that a little more about why you can't stage it different times?
Well, you could state, I mean,
Different years, the way
Mr.
the
Law
gentleman is
says.
It's not the way they want to bid it. That's
No,
the
the thing
problem.
is-
If they're bidding it as one contract, you can't stage it.
But then you still have the issue of from the intersection to the bridge, if we stage it at one time, that's either gonna have to be put into the bridge contract.
That happens every day, bridge approachment. That
it's more-
happens out here on the interstate.
But it's more than
They don't pour right up to the bridge.
Yeah, but it's more than an approach. It's also gonna have utility replacements and that'll have to be done. I mean, we can do it any way you'd like us to do it. That's why we're having this. So we don't get to adopt and everyone says, well, why didn't you do it this way or this way? We're giving you the opportunity now to give us direction. That's what we're looking for.
Everything we've just suggested, you've given us a million reasons why we shouldn't do it.
No, I'm just telling you,
So then we'll just do it. I guess we call the.
Well, I have one question. So if we changed everything, do we still get our money that,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to change. I just think it's crazy. I think we should get it done and get it out of there. Just get it done.
Are there any other property owners or businesses to be heard?
Or even citizens? Besides the mayor?
I'd love to speak again on behalf of anybody that isn't here today. I expected a couple other folks to be here, but I think most of them have thrown in the towel based on what they've seen in the presentation, pages 233 to 240 inclusive. I think after reading that, the business people that I've spoken with felt that nothing has changed substantially since the last meeting, in spite of Councilman Moore and Mayor Scott's requests for economic information, economic impact study, and also a reason, or a valid reason, viable reason why this can't be staged in two different projects as it originally was scheduled to be. So I think that by and large, the business community has thrown in the towel on this. The business community threw in the towel after North Sioux City. I was the only guy that appeared at your March 27th meeting because we all thought we were just whipped. And I'm not even a resident of Sioux City, and I understand this isn't Sioux City's fight to fight. I'm a North Sioux City guy, and obviously I don't pay taxes here, unfortunately, although I do eat my fair share of meals and whatnot over here. But be that as it may, we still, in my mind, I still can't understand why we can't simplify this and do it in 2 different years, when clearly no money is at stake other than the loss of the efficiency, the extra expense of the efficiency, but the loss, potential loss of economic revenue or income or whatever to all the businesses all the way along. And to the council's earlier point about the fact that people from North Sioux City don't come over to participate is completely erroneous. There's a lot of money that gets spent. People come across the bridge both directions. It isn't just people going to work in North Sioux City. I mean, nobody can go to Hy-Vee on North Hamilton without going across that bridge, and now they're going to, I suppose they're going to go around a fairway or something, but it's going to be a lot less convenient, and there's a lot of business that goes across there. The military road project that was done years ago in the last years since 2003 has really been a great improvement, but it's just, there are always alternatives, and this is the only time when there's going to be a real choke point, when it isn't going to happen anymore. It just doesn't make any sense to do this so much differently than the other projects have been done. That, and again, I'll speak on behalf of the other business people around, but, we're all facing economic extension. Unbeknownst to many here today, at the behest of the South Dakota government, we've had to reorganize our businesses and do a lot of capital outlays in the last couple of years. The equipment we've been using has been deemed obsolete. We can't get parts for it anymore, and we've had to go on the hook for a lot of debt. When retirement seemed like a viable option at some point in time in the future, you get a 1 year, 5 year, 10-year plan. That all just got backed up 5 or 10 years when you have to have that kind of capital expenditure. And so, we kind of got thrown a curveball by that happening, and this is another curveball where literally, at least in my case, I'm facing, financial ruin. I don't know how this is going to work out, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up anybody's skirt here. I'm just saying, I'm literally facing financial dire straits if our business is reduced by the percentage that we see traffic coming across that bridge by. And I'm sure all businesses wouldn't suffer the same fate. Some people will go around, as Rhonda has said. I completely agree with you. Some people, you have avid supporters, they will still follow you, but 30%, 40%, 50% of the business are cross-trucking. I think that's the way it is with a lot of businesses in North Sioux City, and so I would really implore the council to take a long, hard look at this thing before making any decision on it. Look at the economic impacts for business on both sides of the river. I think on the Sioux City side, you're going to be able to wiggle around, and I think engineering has done a good job of finding workarounds for Telco Triad, some of those others, to get back in there from side streets. But once that bridge is closed, there's no traffic going across it. And if it's done in 2 separate years, we all live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I got one more thing to say. I can tell you that you will survive, and I can tell you also that your business will go down. And I've been through it. I've already talked about this before. I've been through it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I went through it my first time when I had my bar, when North Sioux opened up and had gambling. All my people went right over to North Sioux. I lost my business that way. I didn't lose it, though, because I still had people coming. But, it's kind of when you're in this type of business, it's a gamble. I mean, I'm telling you, you will survive.
I totally understand, Ron. I really appreciate your concern and your sympathy. I really do. But we just levered up. I think all of us. I speak for Kimberly as well. I think we kind of forcibly had to lever up to buy this new equipment, and our financial situations are probably somewhat different than yours were, and maybe that's a little bit anecdotal. And I mean, I wish that I had the luxury of knowing what the future holds, but, you know, I'm scared silly.
Have the luxury, I didn't have that luxury either.
Well,
And-
but
and-
you
and my
got the,
luxury
you got the benefit of
was,
hindsight.
Everybody went to North Sioux. That wasn't not much of a
Well,
luxury for me, was it?
You were fortunate to live through it, I'll tell you.
I'm telling you, you will survive. And yes, it's going to hurt you. I'm going to be honest with you. But you know what? You're going to be hurt for 5 months, not for 10 or a year. That's why the 5 months, get it over with, and then you'll have your people come back. Because I'm going to tell you something, the longer your people are away, you won't get them back. I can tell you that for a fact. 5 months is minimal.
Right.
5 months is, I'm serious. If you have people that are trying to fight to go over that bridge when it's closed halfway, you're gonna have unhappy people that won't.
Well, there won't be much of a fight if it's only the bridge that's closed halfway. Like the military is done 1 year, and you can sneak around the back and then go across a completely open bridge 1 year. And then the following year, there's just a short traffic staging area on the military side, the recently redone military side. And you've only got 400 feet of cars to go back and forth. Really, that's not much of a fight.
I'm also fighting for our taxpayers, because I tell you, if we end up doing it, it that way, your way, it's gonna cost us as Iowa taxpayers a lot of money.
Well, it'll cost South Dakota taxpayers just the same amount, because it'll be quid pro quo. I mean,
Well,
it'll
I'm
be.
not worried about your people as much as I am about Iowa.
I understand, but.
And I don't want you taking that wrong, because I tell you, I got
Sure.
a lot of friends over in North.
Well, no, I didn't, no offense taken.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but.
Sure.
You know, I'm on the Sioux City Council,
Yep.
and your council is agreeing with the Sioux City Council.
I
The North
completely
Sioux Council
understand.
is agreeing
Yep.
with us.
Well-
So, I mean, that's kind of a,
The Sioux City Council agreed for lack of options, actually, and didn't have enough information. Many of them didn't understand the project fully until practically the day they voted on it. And you can talk to them and ask them if you don't think that's accurate. But having been to these meetings and whatnot, I can tell you they weren't totally informed. And frankly, as the public and as business owners, we've been fairly well kept in the dark on this throughout the negotiating period and on and so forth. And I've had to go kind of talk to DOT reps and people that work at DOT myself, unfortunately. But again, I haven't heard a good reason yet why not to do this in 2 different years. And, sending people, with a traffic light across a half a bridge that's open, a 400-foot bridge is a heck of a lot easier than, it seems impractical to me to do it all at one time. When you could do, and, in best case, if we can knock this thing down to 3 months instead of, 3 working months with a lot of incentives on that bridge, the military road project will take care of itself. And I think businesses are going to be served, and the engineering department's going to do a good job of taking care of those businesses over there. But when you close that bridge, but you incentivize that bridge heavily, disincentivize it heavily, and keep half of it open, and let traffic flow through and let it flow on military, that'll shorten the pain for everybody.
Okay, just a minute. We've got somebody else here. Let them talk for right now, and we'll let everybody have a chance to talk. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm Kimberly Lucan. I'm currently the owner of Beano and Sherry's Casino in North Sioux. I also own a couple other casinos on the Strip, public speaking, and I tend to be a little bit emotional about it. It's more heartfelt to me. It's not necessarily political or one way or the other. I'm not going to claim I'm an engineer. I'm not going to claim that I know what's the right answer, the wrong answer. All I can say is that there is a lot of miscommunication out there, and I feel a lot of people have been misled as to what can and can't be done. For instance, our North Sioux City meeting, we went to it thinking it was an instruction, our informational meeting, citizen concerns, and then all of a sudden we find out that they unanimously voted to go along with closing the whole bridge down. That was a shock to hear in the media the next day. I didn't expect that. Just several things in general. Even coming to I didn't come to the last meeting because I figured there was no shot in the world that we'd even have any chance of doing anything without our own council not backing us, which is shame on them. And they basically didn't take the citizen concerns. They heard them, but they decided against it no matter what. I think there's some sort of incentive that they're talking about putting money towards. And then I actually watched your meeting online, and I know that you asked specifically for them to give you bids on doing the projects both ways. And I don't believe that they did that. I think they just shot out the same numbers that they shot out before, which are guesstimates. It's not 100% accurate. You're going on guesses. It's not the 100% facts. And I believe the reason they didn't bid it out correctly is because I think the wording says it's not in the scope of JEO's contract. I think it was $27,000 more they would need. And I mean, is that a cost that maybe possibly North Sioux and Sioux City could work out to see the scope of doing things differently and get it actual bid? I mean, I'm not saying one way is right or wrong. I'm not an engineer, but I just think that everybody should have the proper facts and the same facts in front of them.
Thank you.
And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Shorma. I live in Dakota Dunes. I don't have a financial interest from the perspective of some of the business owners. My business is over in Springfield, South Dakota. But as a former senator, I was a senator from May of 2015 until January of 2017, and I'd just like to help on projects that are going to affect the citizens not only of North Sioux City, Dakota Dunes and so on, but also of Sioux City. I care about all the folks there. I hope you'll bear with me for just a second. I won't be hopefully any longer than the 3 minutes allotted. But I want to share with you a brief story that was shared by a gentleman by the name of Mike Abrashoff. He took over a ship that was basically in last place as far as the U.S. Navy fleet was concerned. And just 12 months later, that ship was ranked number 2. One of the simple methods that he used to turn that ship around with all of the crew was that he committed to them that he would always work toward a yes. That doesn't mean everybody's going to be satisfied, but I'm going to work to try to get a yes that works for as many people as possible. And I know that this group is also concerned about getting to yes for as many people as possible, because that's the important outcome that we would like to expect. We have a project that started in North Sioux City or Sioux City on the Riverside side of the road with the original proposal. I know that there have been other suggestions and changes. By the way, I trust that you all got the letter that I sent to you maybe a month ago, March 11th, actually. If you'd like another copy, I've got that. I think there are solutions that can be provided. I understand that there's some discussions have taken place with South Dakota, and I've had conversations with Commissioner Berquist personally about their interest in participating. And he said, I really can't commit to anything until the project has been let, but yes, I understand the financial impact. By the way, the numbers that I shared with you, that the impact was $1 million on the state of South Dakota if the bridge is shut down for a 5-month period and then business comes back slowly. I really think that's probably way understated, but I wanted to be very conservative in the numbers that I shared with you. So please be careful to keep the options open so the best outcome can be sought and the best yes for everyone can be sought. Thank you for your time, and I trust that you'll consider all the options. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed Cherry, the city administrator in North Sioux City. So I just want to confer to all of you that what North Sioux is looking for right now with the contract that we will be working on with the South Dakota DOT is basically moving forward with whatever option of project you want. That gives me the option of going to the state of South Dakota to negotiate what those incentives, what the dollar amount that they will bring to the table to have North Sioux take over the maintenance and ownership of that bridge moving forward. So your decision tonight will help us to decide how much we need to ask for from the state of South Dakota for the incentives and for the complete cost of the bridge for our half. So that's what we are looking for from your elected board tonight, is just a decision on how you want to move forward.
So would the incentives be coming from the DOT, or would they be coming from North Sioux?
So the way that
Council,
the
or-
contract is presented to us currently is that the state of South Dakota DOT will give a lump sum to the city of North Sioux City. And so whatever incentives are built in, that's what I will go back to the DOT and ask for to make sure that we can cover the costs of the half of the project on our side of things, including the incentives.
So what you're saying is if we decide to go halfway, that you're gonna take that back to DOT and see if they'll split the cost? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, we're gonna try to get as much money to cover the cost of the project as possible.
I don't.
Rhonda, they're getting an upfront lump sum payment. If our bridge, based off of our estimate, if our bridge bid turns out higher, they're actually gonna have to out of pocket some money, North Sioux City. If our estimate's lower, they're gonna get to pocket some money.
Right. So we need to.
But the DOT wants a flat number. This is what we're giving you, and you're getting the bridge when they're done. They don't wanna wait till the bids come in. They want the number. This is what we're going to agree to.
So we've been working off of the estimates that your group has put together.
Dave, would that include the additional design?
If we want to go that way,
Bid,
yes.
Neil? We could include those costs?
Well,
I don't know how open the South Dakota DOT will be to that because of the initial design and estimates that they've already received, but.
We'll be walking into deep water here if we decide to start changing everything else around again. And then it's gonna be put back. We might even, we might not even start on it next spring, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly if you wait to pull the trigger on doing extra design until after August or September, whenever North Sioux's able to have those, that basically puts the entire design back by, from today till then to be your new starting point. To where now we'd be ready to let sometime late this fall or the winter, you'd be pushing that back till a later spring date, which could extend your overall, construction season time
And it
window.
could cost more money.
Call for the question.
Capron?
What are we doing here?
You're voting on the way they proposed it.
Aye.
Greckin?
Aye.
Moore?
No?
Waters?
How'd that work out for you?
We'll find out in about a minute, won't we, Matt?
Let's see what you're made of here early in
Yeah,
your,
come
early in
on.
your
Picking
tenure.
on the new guy. That's what it is, right?
Hey, I don't
there.
tell them how to vote. What role we go in.
Well, and I just want to clarify one last thing. So for the incentive, that's what is now. They want to cover half that cost, or half of the
No,
cost
they've
as
got it.
proposed,
The DOT would cover half of the
Yes.
cost, yeah.
As estimated.
as estimated.
And that cost probably,
But
or
you're
the
only
incentive
incentivizing,
is,
under what, well, go ahead, Pete, I'm
I was
sorry.
going to say, the incentive isn't going to be very high, probably.
On the bridge alone, it'll be $1,500 a day.
Yeah.
We could have a separate lump sum, which is what we're recommending, and that number we'd have to negotiate for a 4-month completion date.
But the bidding goes through Iowa DOT.
Because it's got federal money involved, it'll go through DOT, and so they'll probably, like I said, the incentive, they'll want to stick to their guidelines.
If it would, this is probably out of order, but if it would help, the reason why I voted no is I want to do the alternate bid, and I want to do a sharing of at least 50/50, if not more.
The
And this
alternate
won't-
bid for the bridge or both?
For the bridge. And this won't give that authority to you.
No.
To bid them separately, is that
No,
what
to
you're
bid,
saying?
no.
Just so you know where I'm coming
Take an alternate bid on the bridge
We didn't
half
have
the
much
time
discussion on
versus.
it.
No, we didn't. But, and since you brought that up, I would tell you that the difficulty I have is asking Sioux City taxpayers to pay any extra expense that would not be covered. And I don't know what North Sioux City's commitment is. Doesn't sound like North Sioux City knows what their commitment is. And If, hopefully South Dakota Department of Transportation is going to agree to, but even then, if we do the bridge half at a time, it's going to be an additional $337,500 for us. Just doing that half, not talking about the roadway, just the bridge.
Where are you
And-
getting that?
Estimated.
Pardon me?
If it comes in 30%.
If it
higher.
comes into the figures that we're being provided with right now, and you're right, we don't know.
The bridge is only, they're only estimating a 20% increase on the bridge.
Excuse me?
They're only estimating the construction increase was only 20%. It's about a $2.5 million construction on the bridge with 500,000. They're saying additional construction costs. There's an additional 175,000
For the
on
design.
plan preparation.
Right.
I mean,
So you're thinking you wouldn't even support a 50-50 split on the additional cost?
I find that challenging.
Well, then it doesn't matter. Let's vote, Alex, one way or another. Okay, if it passes, it'll be built as proposed by the staff.
Thank you.
17 is a resolution approving a First Amendment to the Development Agreement and a First Amendment to the Assessment Agreement with Seaboard Triumph Foods LLC, 5555 Seaboard Triumph Parkway, formerly known as 2200 Boulevard of Champions. I'll move that.
Second.
Mayor and council, I know you've had a long evening already. Just this action will amend the original agreement and allow Seaboard to proceed with their second phase, which is a commitment on their part of 1,000+ jobs, $31.5 million of additional investment, and also, as you know, a commitment to paying up to $1 million on the road improvements in the area. So thank them for their investment in Sioux City, and this is basically allows them to move forward with the construction. I think Mark wanted to say a few words.
Mark Porter, Seaboard Triumph.
Thanks for staying around, Mark.
Yeah. Hopefully, the decision on the amendment isn't as energized as the military road. So I appreciate the support. We are 105 days away from commencing commercial operations. Not that I'm counting. And this does add 100,000 square feet to the facility, an additional 1,000 jobs, 31 million additional minimum assessed value to the facility, and I think this puts us in pretty tall cotton as far as getting the plant up and running in 2018 to planned several years back. So
I want to thank you for your investment, and I tell you that there is a lot of excited people out there, and not that anyone knows about this, but I have Facebook, and I share every time I see something on Seaboard. Looking for this, you're looking for this job, looking for something. A lot of great responses. So very excited.
That's facebook.com/Rhonda Caper.
Yeah, be my
Historic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other citizens to be heard?
We need to vote on it.
Yes, we do.
Durkin?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Capron?
Aye.
Citizens. Thing, Doug, you come?
I'll make it quick. Doug Waples, 3255 Dearborn. I can't even believe we're talking about getting that bridge done in 5 months. They couldn't get the one on 36th and Hamilton redecked in the amount of days allotted. The Dearborn debacle, or bridge, whichever you want to call it, has been a 120-day project. Today we started the 45th week. The lot beside my house has been dirt for over a year. By the time they moved the houses, the utilities that had to be moved, there's no silt fence, all the dirt blows in my air conditioner through the windows. It's just been solid dirt. And like I said, and today's a really nice day out. We probably had somebody working there a couple hours today. You talk about finding somebody $1,500 or $2,000, that don't make a bit of difference to those guys. They figure that in when they bid that. There's no possible way that guy was ever going to get this project done in 120 days. They originally thought it was going to be X number of dollars, and he just added a little more on, and it's all covered, and it's good. Because if you got the same contractor doing that bridge, I'll take anybody's bet today on that, it won't be done on time.
So you're 10 months into it? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, 45th week, and yeah, they shut down, you know, a little bit during the winter, but I mean, it's Iowa. You know, if you're bidding stuff in Iowa, you got to figure on projects being up and down. But, you know, when you don't show up when the sun's shining, you're not going to get something done on time. Over 20 Saturdays with nice weather that they could have worked. Nobody there. You know, you got 110 households in that area, not a big deal compared to 80,000 in the city, but it's a problem to the neighborhood. You know, they need to get the project done.
Who's got that contract?
I agree.
Dixon.
Who does?
Dixon Construction.
Dixon out of
Correctionville.
Correctionville. Why aren't they working?
Yeah, has anybody talked to them?
Yeah, they're out there. This is working on punch lists and finishing up the West Clifton portion.
You gotta
And it
speak
is
into
a-
that mic, I cannot.
It is a working day contract, so they are charged days. You know, if they're not out there working and they could be working on the controlling item, then they are charged days. And their original contract was 120 days, and as of this last week, they were at 137 working days.
So they're being charged 17 days right now. Over.
Yes.
And how much is it a day?
I believe this one's 1,500 a day.
1,500 a day and they're not doing anything.
That's nothing. That's nothing to the amount
Well,
of that project.
it is 1,500, but the problem is that in Iowa, they've got an incentive of 2,000 or 3,000 on another bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it is right now. So have you talked to them to find out why they're not out there?
Yes, they just have some cleanup items to take care of, so they should be done in the next week. They have seeding and dirt
Are they done with
removals.
the one on 38th Street?
It's just additional cleanup and seeding on both of them that needs to take place. But all of the paving is done.
And who's in charge of seeding or sodding the lot that he's speaking of?
Well, they're not gonna sod it. You know, the council directed engineering to work with me on, and I believe Dan said that on some possible, deal to cut the noise down, because you moved that street 45 feet closer to my bedroom window, which isn't working out real good. It is right now because the street's been closed for 6 months. But, and now, I mean, I was told the other day that, of course, we can't do fencing, because there's a cost to that. And we can't put trees there, because then that makes it look like a mini park or something. Stacking some pallets up or something, maybe, I don't know. I mean, you know, at this point, all I got's dirt, and I've had dirt there for a year now because.
You know, that bothers me because that, like you said, that dirt's going in your window, going in your air
Well,
conditioning.
you know, I put a brand new air conditioner in a year ago. I've had to have it cleaned 3 times. I'm just saying.
How come they're not watering the dirt down?
Most construction deals, they have to put silt fence
It's
up.
supposed to be seeded. That's the problem. It's supposed to be seeded last fall.
They seeded it in July, and
But
you know.
is the bridge open?
Yes,
Yeah.
the bridge is open.
And it's still gotta have the sides and everything stained on it. After all the holes in it, and then they patched it with some green stuff.
When did the bridge open?
The bridge opened before winter, I believe it was end of December.
But then
End of
they
December.
closed Clifton down.
So basically, it's cleanup, that's all they have left, and what's left on the bridge?
We only got a few days left according to Pete, because you can't plant grass if it don't have an R in the month.
Yeah,
right,
that's what
Pete?
Grandpa used to say, Doug.
So we got very few days left, or we're not gonna have no grass all summer. You know,
No,
they seeded it
They're
last
not
year
gonna
in
seed it.
July.
They're gonna blow seed it, I'm sure, aren't they?
It'll be hydro-seeded.
You can't seed with in those months.
Yeah, Grandpa used to say
So
grass
Grandpa
won't
planted
grow unless
seed
there's an
different.
hour in a month.
Anyway,
Grandpa didn't have a hydro
Thank you
seed.
for your
May,
time.
June, July,
All right,
and
thank
August,
you.
you might as well forget it.
All right. Anyone else? Pete?
A couple of things. Last Wednesday in the Journal, there was a letter written to the editor from, I imagine, a subscriber who expressed concerns about Discovery parking ramp. And she encouraged council to take a walk through the parking ramp. I took her up on it and I went through it. And while I was there, I had an opportunity to talk to one of the maintenance workers from ABM, the contractor who takes care of the parking lots. And just so you, well, and she talked about, Ron, if you'll take, I asked for some figures on the parking ramp, and here's a map that came along with it. And with respect to crimes occurring in the parking ramp, but just to go through this real quickly, the challenge was to see the 2 floors of empty spaces for hotel guests, which there are. There aren't many hotel guests, but the hotel is paying for those parking spaces. They're remaining empty, but they are being paid for. She talked about experiencing the filth and stench in the stairways and carpeting in the elevators. There is. The workers took me around and showed me the spots that are frequently used, and it is very offensive. The police are called on numerous occasions. There's information right there that will tell you since August, or rather January 1st of 2016, there's been 70 calls for service there at Discovery. Probably not out of line with what history would tell us if we went back farther. A lot of it is for removing people from the building who don't belong there. The lady asked to walk off the ramp on the 2nd floor of the hotel and take a look at the upkeep, and I did do that. And went in the elevators, the carpet seemed to be okay. When you go off the floor there, and I know you know what I'm talking about, you come off the elevator and you go into the park, or to the skywalk system. What I don't know is, and this is my question for whoever has the contract with them, is Howard Johnson's hotel responsible for the maintenance? The lady is correct. The floors don't look anything like the skywalk when you walk over and start into it, the skywalk system. The tile is, in fact, breaking up and bulging. The ceiling tiles are wet. There clearly has been water leaks, and the atrium area is, as everybody knows, is not clean at all. And I don't know whose responsibility is, if the city has a contract with Howard Johnson's, to require them to take care of those issues or not, but it does present, as the lady points out in her letter to the editor, a very poor image for the city. And then finally, I will tell you that in conversation with the maintenance worker, they're having difficulties with, he says the biggest problems he has is with skateboarders, with bicyclists, and then transients who are in the building using it for reasons that parking ramps aren't supposed to be used for. And so I would hope that maybe, and I see the chief is here, I would hope that maybe we can encourage the police to put it already, but I would like to figure out if there's a way that we can hold the hotel accountable to pick up the slack on their part of it, if in fact that's the case. If it's not, and it's the city's, then the city needs to step up and get something done. Now, I did talk to Manette. She was here, Harbeck, and I think we have a joint meeting Wednesday with them. Yeah, but Manette told me it was Howard Johnson's responsibility, so I'm sure she's probably right. And we need to somehow enforce that so we can make those changes. But all in all, the parking ramp, when people start talking about parking, this was a Thursday evening that I was down there. I only counted 31 vehicles in the parking ramp, so there's all kinds of parking spaces for people who want to go downtown.
Dan's idea is to give free parking. It doesn't, I don't think it matters.
No, it probably doesn't. I don't think we're going to lose much, but I don't know. So I think there's a lot of parking, but it is, this letter brought up.
We can convert that to a hotel.
Sounds like people are already staying there.
Your bed would be on kind of a slope.
Well, and she makes this comment, the letter makes a comment too, that we already have a hotel. Well, the city doesn't have that hotel. That's not owned by the city. She talks about the vacant buildings across the street with the theater. That's not the city's either. And there's not.
Which ones?
Pardon? Well, not the Riviera, but.
Oh, the other one, yeah.
Yeah, across from the convention center. And so she does make some valid points. I want her to know, I guess, that we're taking a look at it, and hopefully we can figure out a way to make some improvements there. I also wanted to point out real quickly that for those of you, and I think the city council all got this email, but Corey Westra, who is the commissioner of the GPAC, and Corey and Mike Skaggs co-direct the NAIA Women's National Basketball Tournament annually. We just finished up the 20th year, I believe, and have 2 more years left. But Corey recently attended the NAIA NAIA National Conference in San Diego. And there were people who came up to the podium who, not from Sioux City, I am told, but their position was that whatever happens, whatever you do, don't mess with Sioux City, Iowa in the national tournament. It's the absolute best student athlete experience in the NAIA. They are the best host that the NAIA has for national tournaments. So I think that speaks volumes for volunteers, for the Tyson Event Center personnel, and certainly for Corey and Mike and their leadership through the planning and the public relations, and they're on site all 7 days. So
Don't forget the sponsors at Right
say-
Check.
no, the sponsors are next.
Yeah, don't
He
forget
beat me
those
to it.
sponsors at Right,
No.
Mark? Yeah, that's, because without them, you
Without the
don't have it,
sponsors-
you don't have those free meals.
Thank you, Seaboard.
Without the sponsors, Mercy and Seaboard certainly are the lead in the sponsorships, and we very much appreciate that. And there are a number of other sponsors who also assist. And so everything that happens here is being noticed around the country, and they're very appreciative, and hopefully we'll have that for a very long time. I think it's, without a doubt, in my mind at least, the #1 amateur athletic event in Sioux City. So it's really really
Hockeys
good.
are amateurs too now.
Pardon me?
The Musketeers are amateurs.
I'm going to get to that.
They are, and they're doing well. Rhonda's got them covered. The last thing is the litter dash on Friday, just to emphasize that. I understand that's set up on Friday starting at noon. Long Lines Center, Downtown Partners has been active in it. The city's been very active in it. I'm told over 125 people are coming to lunch, and over 800 people have already volunteered to pick up litter in downtown Sioux City. So I had a bunch of figures on litter, but I'll pass those up for you right now. But it'll be good.
Soho's is providing the lunch.
And Soho's is providing the luncheon. Yeah. Those who are interested in cleaning up the city. So I know it's been long, and I'll stop.
Okay, well, I want to congratulate the Muskies. They have went 2-0 now, and they got the Anderson Cup already. And who else would I like to congratulate? Let me guess. It would be the Bandits.
We're only halfway through. They're in the playoffs.
Hey, listen, you're 6-0, and you played a really good game the other night, and I think you scored your winning touchdown from a fumble. Am I right?
That'd be correct.
So we want to thank you for your participation in the city of Sioux City, Mayor.
He was coaching. Coaching down there.
Were you coaching?
We want to thank the sponsors because they do allow us to
And thank you
continue.
to all the sponsors out there that sponsor everything. We really appreciate it. And that is a big deal, believe me. I've done many events myself needing sponsors, and
Well, I would
that's
have
what gets
gotten
you to
there,
it.
except the mayor took my thunder.
And I'm done. That's it. You go for it.
Well, this is such a feel-good council concerns moment. I don't want to bring any actual
Don't
concerns.
screw it up.
Thanks,
Yeah, exactly. One thing I wanted to ask about while we have council here, and maybe they can direct me. When we have events, and Councilman Moore brought this up at one point, events at the convention center and different places, city buildings, and I'm not seeing recycling at all, ever.
And I didn't put them up to that.
No, but it's something that's really important to me, and I guess I was the most troubled at the health fair, which, come on, like, of all places, it really got me angry.
Not
'cause
one bit.
They're opening all these bottles to give you samples, and then literally he had a trash can that was taller than me sitting that was full of bottles. And I said, are you guys planning on recycling that? Did you talk to the convention center? Is that going into some recycling bins? Well, no, I guess we didn't really think about that.
Jeez.
And that just troubled me. Like, is there such a thing? I mean, do we have a contract that says you need to recycle? We have this service. I mean, does
We
this
don't even
trouble
do it at the
anyone
Tyson.
else? Huh?
We should have bins.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Tyson and other places, like, I don't understand how we can.
need that.
We should be the standard. We should be leading by example for our community, saying, this is what we want you to. You go to other communities and you see these big blue bins that say, please keep our city clean, recycle bottles, glass, plastic.
Why can't we have that done?
We used to have them at the Tyson. I don't know what happened.
Got to bring them back.
You gotta
Well,
get.
I think we need to invest in them.
So I don't.
So that
all
would be
I'm
the
saying is
finance.
I want to know what I
Donna
can do.
Lou,
or-
come on up here. We need some money, honey.
You don't need any money.
I
You've
think
got
we
plenty
have
of
some- I
bins.
think we
Just
have the containers.
I don't know.
Yeah,
how to
that's-
do it.
Let me,
Oh, really?
let me check on the service piece though for you.
To get it in the contract.
they don't sort down there. They bag and throw
I
it.
think we
in.
have the container.
Right, it
Convention
is.
center too. We did have it.
We had them, but boy,
They
you
need
don't
to
see
be
very
labeled.
many of them, Mike.
Donna?
They
They-
do.
they need
do
to be
have-
labeled, too, of
Have
what
the
goes
bins
in.
there.
But I'm telling you, when they pick up the garbage after an event, the staff does, they put it all in the same bag.
And we can forward the
almost
concerns
guarantee
on.
you they don't
That's
recycle.
Oh,
pretty
I'm sure.
self-deflating, I know, if
Yeah.
that's happening.
Anyway, it's just something I'm thinking a lot about and I want to look into because I think it's a shame that we're doing that as a city. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is, and I'm glad Marty stuck around. Thank you, Mr. Doherty. I know we deferred, and I want. A lot of the concern that I'm hearing is a lack of education, and I get that that's not on us. You know, we're trying to do a lot on social media in different areas and hold, public forums for people to come and hear more about it. And the press is doing a good job of, I think, outlining, what the contingencies are, or, how it's a three-legged stool, if you will. The one thing that I need a better answer for, and I need us to outline as an economic development, department, is why the Howard Johnson is not an option. Because I'm hearing that a lot. I mean, we heard it today with Dick, but I want to be able to have a better answer than that, than it's cost prohibitive or that we've looked into in the past. And I know that I'm new, and to the council, and that this has been a discussion. It's been happening for years, literally for years. People have it, and it's something that I understand where they're coming from, because I don't want to have another building that's either empty or, to Dick's point earlier today, that's still making us, not be appealing, if you will, right, to put it nicely. Sure. And so I want a better answer to that. You know what I mean?
Yep. We'll get you some more information on that.
I agree, and I think I understand where you're coming from, and I can reason with a person when I'm talking to them, but and especially if they put me in the position where I'm making the deciding vote again, I want to be able to know with good confidence kind of where I'm at on that, and I just want better. I want more clarity of why that's not an option, why we can't invest, because they're right. I mean, I think our contribution is 6.1 with that, if I'm not mistaken, 6.1 or something with the hotel part of it for the ramp. Maybe that one's for a different part, but if we invested that or some of those dollars directed into redoing that, or
I don't think we can.
Redirected them, I don't know. I want to know what our options are and what they're not.
We can't use our reinvestment money for that, can we?
Yeah, because as long as you're rehabbing a hotel, 50%.
Well, it's not currently in the district, I think is what she's maybe getting at.
Yeah.
As presently configured, we could not. You'd have to kind of start over and enter into a different
Can't be doing that.
kind of an agreement to do
kinda-
that. But I mean, I
Let
think
me
there's-
just clarify, you will always have the right to review and make the best decision, and we have never reviewed that.
Reviewed.
There was a time where we tried to make a run at that hotel right before, if you remember, and we should have gone the amount and taken control of that, and now, that horse left the barn, but
That was Pete.
Pete what?
Well, Pete
I
brought it
voted
up.
to buy it when we talked about it.
Anyway,
I can go back and give you a history and background on how we got to where we are. And obviously what the mayor's talking about is back when the hotel was still in foreclosure before it was owned by the current owners.
Yeah.
We had an opportunity at that time. We had some recommendations from the hotel consultant, and the council did discuss that, I guess, confidentially as to what a price might be, and we looked at that. I can get you that information.
Well-
And then where it is today and what it would take today to do that, which it would be somewhat different, I think significantly more of a challenge than it was then, but.
Why is that?
Well, I think the cost would be higher than maybe we had an opportunity for at that point, so.
6.5.
Or 6.5, sorry, yeah, you're right. I just want to say, though, I don't want a dissertation.
But why would
That's
the
not what-
construction costs have gone up?
But I don't know what the construction costs, I guess I'm talking about the acquisition costs.
Oh, the acquisition costs would go up, yes.
Anyway, to clarify, I just don't want a dissertation. I mean, I appreciate how thoughtful your response would be, but I to read through the whole background, if you can just give me a synopsis, in a memo or something for all of us, I think we'd
Be
appreciate
happy to
that.
do that, sure. Okay.
But I agree with what the mayor just said too. I want to make sure that we're putting forward the best proposal, and I think that you do too. I know you do, Marty. I just want to make sure that we're all on board with what's happening or what direction we're going. But I appreciate the hard work you put into this. I really
That
do.
atrium, yeah.
Thank you. We'll get you that.
Thank you. All right, I've had enough. I'm sorry.
Topics I had on my list, Mayor, have been covered, so thank you very much.
So you're good to go?
I'm good to go.
We had a big water main breakup by St. Luke's Hospital again, it looks like. Anybody know? The whole street's torn up. They're right off of Stone Park Boulevard, right by the parking ramp.
Yeah.
By the emergency room area. Back.
When we fix those, do we use maintenance mix? Because it's been now shut down for over a week. Why do we not spend a little bit of money and have it open the day you pour it, the next day? Or 3 days? Well, we bid maintenance mix when we bid the concrete at the spring. It's totally unacceptable to, around a hospital or anywhere else, for the difference in what it costs for a yard of concrete to have a neighborhood, have roadblocks. We never factor in the cost of roadblocks sitting there. We never effectively look at what it costs to maintain those type of roadblocks.
I'm 100% with you that we should be using.
Then why don't we do it?
I will get with our guys and find out why it wasn't done.
That thing has been that way Thursday, I think. If you would have used maintenance mix.
That afternoon, you'd be open.
Exactly. Instead, we wait 7 to 8 days.
Waiting on the concrete.
I'm waiting for one to break in your neighborhood, and you better use that kind of concrete. And yours, Marty.
It is my neighborhood.
Yeah. I, for a long time, had to not even get to drive home on Douglas Street. You finally opened it up.
Yeah, no, I'll find.
I want you guys to understand, I had a call from SAP Brothers or whatever they are, and they're going to set up a deal where they mix, they come in and they fill a deal with biodiesel, with bio oil. And then they want to blend that in, so they go get the tanker truck filled 80%, then they fill it with 20%, okay? And so our staff has taken the position that I've asked them to ask you about, that somehow is like a tank yard, and you have to have 5 acres of ground. Because of our new zoning, these type of things weren't supposed to really change, but, so now they have to have 5 acres. Well, what we've said is, go outside of town, because they don't need to pay 30 to 50,000 an acre to have 3 acres to sit there and grow weeds. And then the staff says, well, and I wish Jeff were here to refute this, but you can ask for a variance, but we won't support it. Why would we make them need more ground than what they need to turn a truck around to fill it with oil? It makes no sense to me. I bet you the Sapp Brothers little yard, the bulk plant they have, it's basically a bulk plant, but they're treating it as a refinery, if you read their minutes. Which, if that's a refinery, I got news for you. So they're treating that as something it isn't, because I know they don't have 2 acres in their bulk plant down by your old bar, Rhonda. Even with their
No, you're
gas
right.
station out front maybe, but not with the actual bulk plant.
I'll ask Jeff. We'll get you an answer.
Well, he's unwilling to look at it without making them go through a bunch of hoops, which I don't care if that's what our zoning is. I think that's wrong. I think we're wrong to have that in our zoning ordinance, and I think it's something this council had no idea they were voting on, which I know none of us did. But then to interpret that as like a a refinery makes no sense. There's not even any,
Refining being done.
no, it's a bulk plant is all it is.
Okay, we'll get a definition out. So
Thank you. I move we adjourn unless you guys have something.
Oh, I don't know, I might have. No, I'm good.
Greckin?
All right.
Moore?
Maybe we can get 5 votes on this, yes?
Aye.
Capron?
No? Well, sorry.
Glad to see Dan Morse finally coming around, coming back to the light side.
Well, what'd you say, Bob?
Pull him out of the dark side.
What'd you say, Bob?
It took a while, didn't it?